All right, so today we are going to be talking about the argumentative essay, the last essay in English 101. You should have something to write with as I'm going over this, so you can make notes on your assignment sheet if you need to. Also, if you have any questions, please let me know. This is not just for your benefit because we're going to have a week off at some point, or not at some point, it's going to be next week before this is due. But also for my online classes as well. So let's take a look at the due dates first. Your introduction, thesis, and outline is due in Canvas by the start of class for you guys on the 7th. If the online classes is by 11:59 p.m. The final draft is due in Canvas on the 9th of December. That's a Friday. Then by the next day, you have to get your video presentation due in Canvas. I'm going to reiterate this when I get to the oral presentation part. It's required for all English classes to have at least one oral presentation. But use a computer to upload your video. Not a phone, not a tablet. Use your computer to upload your video. So if you record it on your phone, download it to your computer first, or download it to YouTube first, because the Canvas app is notorious for not loading videos either quickly or at all. Okay, so make sure that you are either downloading to YouTube or to your computer before you submit your oral presentation. Questions on that? All right, so let's take a look at the assignments. You are to write a 1,200 to 1,500 word page paper presenting the arguments proposing a change to an existing law or statute that fits one of the categories below. Since these are also fairly controversial laws in some cases, you can also argue that the law should stay the same. Okay? So for example, one of your topics is lowering the drinking age. You could make an argument to keep it at 21. Okay, I on occasion get arguments that the drinking age should be raised. They haven't been good papers. Okay, don't make an argument that drinking should be made illegal. We tried that twice in this country. It failed miserably both times. Drinking went up, not down. Okay. The purpose of the argument essay is to make a claim and defend it against competing claims, persuading someone to think or act differently. Okay, so by the end of that introduction, your stance on the issue needs to be crystal clear. Can't have any wishy-washy thesis statements. This is not an informative paper. This is an argumentative paper. You're going to be doing some informing along the way, but your main purpose is to convince your audience to think or act differently. All right? You should think about what other arguments could be made once you decide what you want to argue. This is to be a formal, non-personal essay. What you should read here is, if you can, write this in the third person. He, she, it. Why? Eliminate all the I think, I believe, I feel type sentences. Okay, your name's on the paper. We know whose opinion it is. Okay, so if at all possible, it's going to make your writing more formal, and have your audience take you more seriously if you write in the third person. Okay? Follow closely the models provided in the arguing chapter of your textbook. Okay, any questions so far? All right. The assignment, let's get a little bit more detailed here. After reading the assigned sample essays in chapter 15 and 33, as well as Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, create a clear and debatable thesis. Your thesis cannot be a statement of fact. Okay? Marijuana is legal in some places and not in others. Okay, what now? So your thesis needs to take a stand on your issue. Your thesis will be of your own choosing on the following topic. Propose a change to an existing law or statute that fits one of the topics listed below. Or you can argue that a controversial law should stay the same. What you will have to do for this paper is define the law in both letter and spirit, create an effective thesis that takes a clear stand on the issue or how you think the law should be changed, and provides clear arguments with successful evidence to support your claims. Now, before I move on, let's talk about the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Okay. What is the letter of the law? Does somebody want to take a guess?
The actual written law.
The actual written law on paper. And actually, the Alabama statutes are available in our library if you're writing about a law in Alabama. And your law can be state, local, or national. Okay? The letter of the law is how it's written. What is the spirit of the law?
What is intended to do?
Yes, what it's meant to do. So, for example, why do we have a law against jaywalking? Yeah, keep you from getting hit. So we designate areas on the road. This is where you should cross the street. This is where drivers will expect you to be. And this is where we can, to the best of our ability, protect you. Now, imagine yourself, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, probably tonight since we have a supermoon. It's as close as the moon's going to be for the next like 30 years or something. Anyway, very bright moon. Well, at night you're on a country road. You can see a mile in every direction. Now, in order to cross the street where you are, you don't have a crosswalk. You have to walk 600 feet down that way to a crosswalk. Well, you don't want to do that, so you cross the street where you are. Are you breaking the letter of the law or the spirit? The letter of the law. Letter of the law dictates that you are supposed to go to that crosswalk 600 feet that way. However, the spirit of the law is to protect people from getting hit. You can see a mile in either direction. It's a clear night. You know there's no obstacles or dangers in crossing the street where you are. Okay? You are protecting yourself. Now, technically, you could still get a ticket for that, but you're not violating the spirit of the law. You're violating the letter. Yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
It's kind of off topic, but when someone is at a crosswalk, aren't you supposed to stop and let them cross first?
Yes.
Okay, because people don't do that here.
Yeah.
I let people cross and people are like behind me honking.
Well, that's what you're technically supposed to do. So you're following what you're supposed to do. Yeah, I'm not sure there are any traffic laws in Walmart parking lots, though.
Oh God, I swear.
It just happened yesterday. There was an old couple that apparently they were tired of living because they did not look. They just went, and 2 cars almost hit them.
When I'm coming in, I just kind of go, and sometimes I just hit somebody clips me just enough to cover that paint spot that's missing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, parking lots can be kind of the Wild West in terms of traffic laws. Okay, we're digressing. Let's get to the rest of the assignment. Now, we're talking about successful evidence. Successful evidence is evidence based on logical or ethical considerations or through your expert opinions, which would be your sources. In addition, you'll have to address the opposing arguments in your paper and refute them while still keeping a level tone and without using inflammatory language. Now, one thing you have to be very careful of with this paper is avoiding biased sources. For example, if you were making an argument in favor of becoming a vegan, I would advise against using a website like PETA because they have an agenda. Just like if I was writing an article about gun control, I wouldn't use the NRA. Again, biased sources. Just because you agree with something doesn't mean that the source isn't biased. So be very careful when you're going through your sources to make sure that you are using neutral, unbiased sources. All right? Yes?
We have to use
Same rules apply. Now you can use .coms, but you just have to get prior approval. And a good place to start with any of these essays is procon.org, and I think there's a link from our library's website. You can find several articles on any of these topics. there. So that's a great place to start. That's procon.org. And you wouldn't need to get approval for that. I know it's a good site. All right. Sources. In order to aid in making and or defending your claim, you'll be required to use at least 4 outside sources. You'll need to document your sources both in the body of your paper and on the final works cited page using MLA style. For you guys, you have both the documentation exercise and the career essay. All my classes have the career essay and my feedback before this essay is due. Okay? So, because you've gotten feedback on your works cited page, am I expecting a perfect works cited page? Not necessarily, but probably over 90% correct. All right, on this upcoming paper. Questions on that? Okay, and just like the previous paper, the career essay, your works cited page does not count towards your word count. All right. Resources, topic lists, and what not to write about. A good place to start with this paper is the news and current events in this section of the library's useful links. Also, as I mentioned before, procon.org is a good place to start. You may ask me to do your own topic, but you would have to get prior approval. You will want to avoid any topic where one of your first arguments would be faith-based or emotion-based. I want to make this crystal clear. You cannot use religious texts as a source for this paper. Okay? No Hebrew Bible, Christian Bible, Torah, Buddhist writings, Quran, anything like that. Okay? Keep your arguments completely secular. All right? Questions on that? Alrighty. You will want to avoid any topic where one, okay, I already said that. Topic list, lowering the drinking age. As I mentioned before, you don't have to argue that an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old gets the same rights as someone who's currently 21. If you want to make an argument to lower the drinking age, you can argue to make it 19. Most of you are living that right now, but it's been my experience that a lot of people grow up more between the ages of 18 and 19 than they did the previous 18 years combined. Okay, if you want to make an argument to lower the drinking age, maybe have a drinking card, like you have to go through alcohol classes or alcohol education classes in order to be eligible. You have to have no police records, so, you know, something like that. You can make whatever stipulations you want. It doesn't have to be carte blanche change. That really goes for all of these. Legalization of marijuana. You don't have to argue for legalized recreational use, but you can make the argument that for certain diseases you can have medical usage. And one thing, if you're going to argue about marijuana, do not, if you want to keep it illegal, make the argument that it's bad for you because you smoke it. Okay? Most legal marijuana is not smoked. Okay? It's vaporized or put into edibles. And if you say that it shouldn't be legalized because people smoke it, it demonstrates to your reader that you haven't thoroughly researched the issue. Okay? So that's just kind of a warning with the marijuana issue. Military drafts. And this really should be military draft / civil service. For example, there are a lot of countries in the industrialized world that require 1 or 2 years of some sort of civil service before you can go to college or go on a job. In Israel, for example, there's a 2-year mandatory military service after high school, which makes sense if you're surrounded by a lot of countries who don't really care for you. Every citizen having military training, men and women, makes a difference. But this is also going to be some sort of government service, like, you know, we had an essay really early in the semester that made an argument about some sort of civil service, whether it's building housing projects, building roads, working in some sort of governmental capacity, either at home or overseas, serving in the military, something along those lines. So you don't have to limit it to just the draft, but you could also argue that women should be draft eligible as well as men. You could make the argument that there should be a military draft at all times, that we should have a larger military, shouldn't be just volunteer-based. There's a lot of stuff that you can make an argument for there. Gambling laws. Perhaps you'd like to see the type of casino-style gambling that they have in Mississippi on the coast. Perhaps you'd like to see the expansion of Indian gaming, state lottery, or you want to keep that stuff illegal. There's lots of arguments to be made. High school exit exams. Fortunately, with the phasing out of a lot of the No Child Left Behind Act, there isn't quite as much emphasis on testing as there used to be, but there still is quite a bit of emphasis on testing, both in primary and secondary schools. But should you have to take a test to pass or graduate from high school, the idea in favor, of course, being that if you have a standardized state test, you're guaranteeing that all your graduates have the same basic level of knowledge, regardless of how good their school is. The counter arguments are that some people aren't good test takers, that testing is being used too much to disperse funding. If you have a school where students aren't doing well, do you really want to take away funds? So there's arguments on both sides. Next topic, euthanasia. This is physician-assisted suicide. And it's legal in a couple of states, and it's only for certain terminal diseases. I don't think anybody, any state has really proposed carte blanche on physician-assisted suicide. It's only for certain terminal diseases and only with certain stipulations. But you may make an argument against that as well. Let's see. The color's going crazy. Green laws. And this really applies to green energy or any type of environmental. And perhaps you think that all cars, not trucks, should be required to get at least 25 miles a gallon by 2025. Perhaps that you would want to make an argument in the state of Alabama that all community colleges should get, say, 10% of their energy from green sources. We actually use thermal heating here in the wintertime to heat the buildings. In a lot of schools, I know in California, when I went there to visit this summer, a lot of schools have solar panels that also double as covered parking for a lot of schools out there. So they have kind of a double benefit. Let's see, animal research. This is an issue that there's clearly two sides on. One side might argue that animal research is necessary to develop human cures, whereas the other side might argue that computer modeling and things of that nature should be used instead. Or you can just argue that animal testing should have more restrictions on it. Because right now, animal testing has a lot of regulations, but they don't check in on the companies, and usually the companies are given a heads up, like a month ahead of time before they're going to be inspected. So you may make an argument that yes, we need animal research, but we also need a lot more regulation of it to make sure that the animals are being treated humanely and all that. Cloning laws. This can go into things like stem cell research and things like that. Prostitution. Now, first you may say, well, we're not going to make prostitution legal. It's silly. Well, before you go too far in that, do think about the issues with prostitution. What are some of the issues of why it's illegal in the first place? Abuse of women, drug use or spread of sexually transmitted diseases, increased crime. Well, think about what happens if it's legalized. Women have protection. You eliminate pimps. They can go to the cops if they're abused by a client. STDs. In Nevada, where brothels are legal, the women are tested twice a week. Depending on the brothel, some test more often than that, 3 times a week. Spread of STDs, things like condom use is required. If it's in a legalized place, you don't have to have it in an area of criminal activity. In a neighborhood where there's bad things going on already and the prostitution's adding to it, you can have it in locations that are safe environments. So with all these issues, before you discard it offhand, make sure you think it through. That's why addressing the opposing argument is really important to this essay, because you're demonstrating that you haven't just researched your side of the issue, okay? And again, try to block out everything, all the type of arguments you saw in the political cycle, because most of them are not the type of arguments we want to do. You don't have one person on one side, the other one on the other side saying, I'm right, no, I'm right, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck. That's not the type of argument we're doing here, okay? Think PBS or NPR as opposed to Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, okay? We're not arguing for entertainment, we're arguing to convince. That makes sense? Okay, and then finally, maternity and paternity leave. Amongst industrialized nations, we actually have some of the lowest amounts of maternity and paternity leave for new parents. I think the only guarantee that you get is that your job is held for 12 weeks after childbirth. That's all you get. Whereas in some Scandinavian countries, you get 6 months paid maternity leave. It may not be full salary, but it's some sort of payment. So stuff to think about. Questions about any of these categories? All right, some of the things on the checklist. You need to have a thesis that makes a clear defensible claim, have at least 1,200 words, in Times New Roman 12-point font, have page numbers, all that sort of stuff. 4 valid outside sources, grammatically sound and logically organized, submitted via Canvas by the due date and time. And just as a note, for those of you that have been here before, I don't want you to withdraw from my class, and most of you that I'm seeing today are doing quite fine. However, the withdrawal deadline is much earlier this term than it was in previous terms. It's Friday the 2nd. But for you guys, it's probably Thursday the 1st, because I work at home on Fridays. I can't sign. If you need something signed to withdraw from the class, I can't sign it. Okay, questions about all that stuff? All right, the rubric is pretty standard. The reason why you see stuff that's out of 18 as opposed to 20 for a 200-point paper, yes, it's worth 20% of your grade. You turn in 40% of your grade in the last 2 class periods between the final paper, which is 20%, and the final, which is 20%. So even if your grade isn't where you want it to be right now, you still got to have an opportunity to get it up. On the last page, you will see the oral component to the arguing essay. Since we're required to do an oral presentation, you're going to post a 3 to 5 minute video discussing your argument. It's worth 20 points. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each of these items are worth 4 points. That's what I grade you on. Okay? So make sure that you use this as a checklist for what should be incorporated. You can find the place to submit the oral presentation in the discussions tab on Canvas. That's for all my classes. Now, there is an extra credit opportunity with this worth up to 5 points. Respond either via type or video to 5 or more of your classmates. In your response, discuss your impressions, whether or not you agree, keep a neutral tone, no flame wars, please, and whatever else you can add to discuss the topic. You'll get 1 point per response up to 5. And this doesn't have to be done by the 10th, just by the time we take our final, which is on Monday, the 12th of December, 10 o'clock, I think, or is it 11 o'clock? I'll give you ample warning. It should be in your syllabus when your finalists do. All right, so any questions about all this stuff? All righty, let me go ahead and stop my broadcast.